Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chaunagatamar. So this is a special episode. We have a guest here. Kaustubh is here, and we will, as given in the details given in our SM, we will ask Kaustubh about all of our things regarding the targets. Uh, the most of the targets or like signings we are targeting are from Syria, and I can't probably think of anyone better than Kaustubh to talk about Syria because he is the go-to guy, go-to guy for me regarding Syria. So, um, uh, for introducing Kaustubh, he works in Get Italian Football News as an editor-in-chief. Kaustubh, welcome to our pod.
Thanks for having me. I love to talk about Serie A and United. Pretty much whenever you want, say, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, without any thing, for all the viewers, we have few questions that we are planning to ask Kaustubh. So we will start doing that. Then afterwards, I will tell you guys to put a questions in for your questions. So then we can ask Kaustubh those questions. That's how we are planning this. So uh, when when I say you can ask questions, because scrolling back and getting those questions will be really difficult. Um, so we will start with the question. AJ, you can go.
Hi, good evening, Kaustubh. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the board. And let's go to the questions first. It's for the about the last season. I have seen many times you have mentioning about ETH and his philosophy about football and how the system works for him. I have seen few threads you have put it through on the Twitter. So my first question is what do you think about United's last season performance, and how much do you rate the work ETH done at the job till now? And uh, what's your thoughts about the last season and how the works has been done?
I think when the season started off, we didn't expect United to come across as the final product. Um, by final product, I mean that we didn't expect United to go all guns blazing right from the first season, and it showed since the first two games were obvious losses, and United were in the relegation zone, and people were talking about stuff about why uh, Ten Hag might be in trouble so early on and all of that nonsense. But I think the way he recovered, the way he sort of adapted to the problems despite having obvious issues with the squad, not just after the first two games. I think even throughout the season, you look at the halfway point of the season where uh, United had a very tough run of games post World Cup, and then when United lost to Liverpool that 7-0 game, after that there was a tough period where United weren't quite great. But Ten Hag showed that he's not a Pep Guardiola. He's someone who's very adaptable. He's someone who's, I would say, closer to Mikel Arteta because Mikel Arteta won the FA Cup while playing a different brand of football with Arsenal. So I think Ten Hag has some principles of Pep Guardiola in him, but he also has his own ideas, and he showed that he can adapt his team on the basis of the players available. So you saw that there were times when Wout Weghorst played as a number 10, and a lot of times that was because David De Gea's goal kicks couldn't go as far as the centre forward. So since Weghorst is really proficient aerially, so he had to drop deep and receive those balls. So it's things like that where we saw Victor Lindelof playing in defensive midfield, I think twice or thrice. So a lot of things happened across the season where Ten Hag showed that he's very adaptable and very flexible with things. Although he has made sure that there's like a playing style in place where you can see that United have improved technically uh, in possession, but they still rely on counterattacks. So I think the next phase of Ten Hag's project will be making sure that United basically improve in possession when it comes to playing through opposition press, which is something United aren't great at. despite the fact that they have Lisandro Martinez, who is, I think, one of the best defenders when it comes to ball playing. So I think, and David De Gea leaving is big, and Andre Onana coming in is very important in that regard. So I think the building blocks are in place. Like we know what Ten Hag is trying to do now. It's not as if that he's coming in and saying that we don't know what he's trying to do. Now we can see that there's a structure in place, there's a playing style in place, and we know that Ten Hag's extremely flexible. Because I think it was a Liverpool game where United came into it after losses, and people were expecting United to lose. So Ten Hag completely changed his system for that game, and United won that game. And I think that will be Eric Ten Hag while having a focus on his own playing style. So, but I think there's this season is going to be massively important because I think we'll see how United improve in possession when it comes to controlling play and when it comes to, as I said, playing through the opposition press. And I think they will improve in those regards. But I think we'll have some, reality checks at the end of next season where, I mean, a lot of people won't accept those truths at this point. But at the end of the season, we'll see that those things are probably true. I won't talk about those truths, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay. So now moving on to our thing like transfer targets and stuff. Like I don't think we can call him a target because it's almost done. So coming to Anana, uh, my question is like, what type of GK is like what United fans can accept from him? We have seen a lot of like he's uh, really good at ball playing and sweeping keeper and all. But again, what is the real like you might have seen him for the last season, the whole game he has played. So you are the best person to like answer this. So what is your opinion that how Ten Hag will play Onana in our in United team and how he will adapt to that uh, his traits or his characteristics and how that will improve our system.
So I think a lot of people say that Onana is a modern day goalkeeper, which is true, which is like completely true. For me, he's one of the top five, maybe top four goalkeepers in the world right now. I mean, based on the fact that he was excellent in the Champions League, a lot of people saw that Champions League final and said that, yeah, Onana is excellent on the ball. But have seen very few people comment on what happened before that. The games against, Milan, the games against Porto in the round of 16. I think those were the games which showed how good Onana is on the ball as well. But when it comes to shot stopping, because if you look at that game against Porto, he made, I think, one point blank save, I think right at the very end. And he almost kept Inter in the game. If not for Onana, Inter would have never gone through to the finals. People talk about the final being that point where, he was excellent and he was the only reason why Inter played well and all of that. But the facts are that if not for him, they wouldn't have reached the final. And it's a bit sad that people don't talk about it because that final grabbed a lot of attention since it was against Man City. United fans wanted that treble to not happen and all of that. So I understand that, but we are sort of not sort of considering what's happened before that as well because he's really good in terms of shot stopping as well. I mean, people can talk about his weaknesses and all of that, but I think uh, I've said this and tweeted this and written about this before as well that if a player is offering you a net positive on the pitch, which Onana does, uh, it's easy to ignore mistakes. You look at someone like Allison as well. Allison has made errors. We've seen Allison making some big errors in the past against Man City, the bigger sides. But a lot of people don't see that because he offers a massive net positive. I mean, he does. Allison doesn't need to save shots; he prevents shots, and that's why I think Allison is the best goalkeeper in the world for me. He can make errors. There's no doubt. I think every footballer is allowed to make errors, but when that player offers you net positives, I think that's what shows his true value. So I think Onana is that sort of keeper who will, I think, revolutionize how United play. And I think, I mean, this I could go on to be wrong maybe 2 years down the line, but I think Onana currently could be United's most important signing in the post Alex Ferguson era. And that is because he, lays the foundation for a playing style, which I don't think United have had uh, since Sir Alex retired, or maybe even at the 4 5 years before Sir Alex Ferguson retired. So I think he sets the tone for the system where United can play through the press. I mean, I spoke about how United need to learn to how to play through the press. So Onana guarantees that. And with Onana coming in and Martin is already there and Luke Shaw being there, I think United have, I think, 3 out of 5 United of 5 United players out of that back line are actually really press resistant. Uh, Varane isn't. I mean, that was something I didn't intend to talk about. I said because it's going to be harsh truth for many that Varane is not someone United can go forward with. And I think Van Bissaka has a problem in possession as well. But I think the rest of the three players, that's a very solid core to play the way Ten Hag wants to play. You know, controlling possession and making sure that when teams press, you play through them. So I think Onana will guarantee that. And people say that he'll make errors. Onana will make errors. But honestly, he's someone who's. I mean, I've seen him at Inter, researched about him, spoken to people who know him, who've been with him. They say that he's very resilient. At La Masia, when he was at Barcelona, he came to La Masia alone when he was, I think, 12 or 13, and he developed really well without having any parents around, without having any relatives around. So, and he went to Ajax, which is a big decision. If you're in Spain, a lot of players usually prefer staying in Spain. But this man, I mean, he was about 19 or 20 then. So he moved abroad and then came to Inter. So he's adapted everywhere he's gone. He's adapted at 3 different clubs. When I think the first step was, more difficult. So I think United have a top player on their hands, and even if it doesn't start well, I think it will improve because Onana is that character who can improve quickly.
I think you have clearly explained about Onana's mentality, but again, I just want to take something out of from that answer. Gary Neville said, being United's number one, not only number one, all the players in that pitch, 11 players, will always have the hardest job in the football, hardest job, or the most scrutinized players in the world is United players. So, how do you think, or do you think Onana has the mentality? Again, you have explained it, but do you really think that he can become like a? I'm not comparing with any of the previous goalkeepers like Edwin van der Sar, but ha, do you think that he will have that impact on United's performance or the playing style in the coming years or coming months? What's your take on that?
I think he can because at Inter, I mean, I tweeted this as well that before the Champions League final,
Yes.
a lot of Inter players, and that includes the captains and the senior players, Lautaro Martinez, Alessandro Bastoni, and every senior Inter player who've been at Inter for the last 3 4 years. They were giving these interviews about the final, how big a moment it is, and they were very cautious in those interviews. They were saying that it's a big moment for us. We will try to replicate 2010. Man City are a great team and all of that. So, which said that they might be confident, but they're not talking about it openly. They're very cautious about it. But 2 hours before the final, Onana actually spoke to the Italian press, saying that we are Inter Milan and we will win this game, which is very rare, which you don't see often from a player who's joined Inter only 12 months ago, not 12, I think 10 months ago or something, where Inter's future captain Lautaro Martinez was very cautious. Bastoni was very, and Bastoni is a Inter fan. He has an Inter tattoo on his hand, and he was very cautious. But Onana identified those Inter values very well, and he spoke as if Inter will win it. And even though Inter didn't win it, as we said, he was probably the best player on the pitch. And after the game, you could see him actually lifting Inter players off the ground when a lot of them were crying and disappointed and were on the floor. Onana wasn't. He lifted all of them up, said that let's be strong, we'll go again, and all of that. Obviously, they can't go again because he's coming to United, but uh, that says a lot about Onana and the sort of character he is. I think at Inter, there was a point in the season, there was a game in the season where Edin Dzeko was actually fighting with the referee, and Onana, being the leader that he is, he actually abused and scolded Dzeko for to saying that stop arguing with the referee, get on with the job and everything. Which again says that he's that sort of old school leader that people like Gary Neville were. You mentioned Gary Neville. So I think he's the sort of leader that United fans will love. And I think if all goes well, which I expected to, in 2 months he could be a fan favorite, almost like Lisandro Martinez.
Yeah. So we are all expecting, like, even though we have seen him doing things in the Champions League final, most of us seen the Champions League final, and like some of us have seen him play for Ajax and even few Inter matches. We all expect there will be a adapting time, obviously, coming to a new league and all. So hopefully he can come through that. Like mistakes, we are all expecting the mistakes in the first few months itself. So mm, uh, let it be. So moving to now Hochland. I hope I am pronouncing the name correctly. Uh,
It's actually Hoyland. You don't pronounce the J.
Hoyland.
Hoyland.
Okay,
Almost like
Hoyland.
Holland, but with an E sound. Hoyland. That sort of thing.
Hoyland. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving to Hoyland, actually we had this conversation in our Twitter group itself, but I will ask for the viewers thing. Like, do you think he is the answer for United's number 9 problem? Is he ready? Like, he's just 20 years old. Do you think he is the answer? Looks like he is the answer because we are steadfastly going after him. But do you think he is the one?
I think he's still raw. Like there were games where he was really good at Atlanta last season, but there were also games where defenders found it very easy to keep him quiet, where they were marking him and he couldn't really do much. Because if you're marking him, he can't take part in build up, he can't link up with those around him, and that is actually one of his main traits. Uh, but it's again, I think he's 20 and he's played in a system which is very attacking. And I think the problem with a lot of Atlanta players, the problems a lot of them face when they go elsewhere is that they don't always do well. And that's because people expect them to do well right from the get go. So, but the fact that Holland is 20, he scored what 9 goals and he has a very solid goals per 90 minutes record. I think he'll sort of get that benefit because I don't think Anthony Martial is leaving anymore, which is not great, but it is what it
Yeah.
is. So I think if Martial stays and Hoyland comes in, I think both of them will rotate. And since Martial's contract is expiring in 2024, towards the end, I expect Hoyland to become more prominent, so that United phase Martial out, and when Martial leaves, Hoyland plays regularly. Because I don't think if Hoyland comes in, he should be the only striker sign. If you're signing Hoyland, a young player who wants to play at 20, and then you're saying that we'll sign someone like Mehdi Taremi or anyone else, or someone
Yeah.
like Jonathan David or someone, you're not doing justice to that 70 million signing who's 20, he wants to play football regularly. So if you're signing Hoyland, make sure that you're not signing anyone else, and you make sure that he's rotating with Martial. Because I think 1 year down the line or 10 months down the line, Hoyland will be worth that 60, 70 million. But I don't think United should spend more than that. But we will see that. We'll see to that. But I think, yeah, not from the get go, but since Martial's there and he's constantly in and out, so Hoyland will get his chance.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, taking a leaf out of your question, I know that stats doesn't talk proper scenarios, but again, uh, do you think the lack of numbers in terms of goal tally, is it due to the way Atlanta plays or the system they operates? Is that the reason why we see lack of numbers on him or the goal tally? Is there anything you can add on it?
I think it was also. I don't think playing style is a problem because Atlanta usually score a lot of goals. They scored 8 goals in one game and then 7 goals some weeks later, something like that. They create a lot of chances. That's their playing style. They're very fluid and very attack minded. So I don't think that was a problem. The problem was that he's still not completely consistent. And secondly, he wasn't the first choice all the time. They had, I mean, when the season started off for Atlanta, people actually didn't expect Hoyland to play regular. So Duan Zapata was there, but Zapata has major injury issues. And Zapata picked up a major, I think it was a hamstring injury. So Atlanta had to play Hoyland right away. And then Luis Muriel was there, but again, he was expected to leave last summer. He didn't, so he wasn't a regular anyway, and he can play on the left and on the right. So people didn't expect Hoyland to play regularly, and I don't think Hoyland expected to play regularly because 19-year-old coming into a new league when Duan Zapata, I think one of the best strikers in Serie A, is playing in the same team as you probably will not expect to play every game. But he had to, and he did. And I think for the number of times he played, I think he did fairly well because, as I said, his goal scoring for 90 starts for round about 0.5, which is 1 goal per 2 games played, which is fairly decent for a 20-year-old, considering that there were some bad games there as well. So, as I said, he's still raw and inconsistent, but regardless of whatever is going on and whatever numbers he has, I think if someone has 9 goals a season, uh, despite the fact that he has shown that he's a very good player in terms of link up, his shot striking ability, his ability to counter attack, run in behind, a lot of that. I don't think you should go above 70 million for him. And United should have learned that from the Martial transfer. Uh, and I think 70 million should be it. Nothing more. If Atlanta, I think Atlanta's price tag is 70, including bonuses, 70 million euros, not pounds. And I think that should be it. United or Atlanta should not even think about going beyond that because that's enough. 100. I don't think the 100 million price tag spoken about in England is true. It's it's very random. I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah, I was coming to ask you that, like, there is certain, like, there is a very big difference between what is mentioned as price tag in Italy and what is mentioned as price tag in England. So England, all the England journalists reporting like it is 100 million pounds. Now they have reduced that to 85 million pounds, but still, uh, I have seen your tweets, and I have seen the Italian journalist tweets that they are mentioning 60 million euros and plus 10 million euros. That's what Atlanta is expecting. Now, actually, we have again today Pedula uh, reported something like that. There is not much differences between the valuation as such. Uh, so I don't think even Atlanta is probably thinking after seeing the England journalist tweets that maybe we should have asked more. Like, we shouldn't have kept it at 70 million euros. So coming back to the uh, Hoyland as a ST itself, like, which kind of striker he is? Like, is he kind of a poacher who stays in that box and gets the goals, or he is kind of a player who has that, as you mentioned, pacey kind of player who can um, like go to the both wings, run the channels, and link up with the players. Like, basically, or drop off. Basically, what I am asking is he kind of a uh, not in terms of output or player, but is he kind of a Haaland, or is he kind of a Kane? That's what I am asking. Like, so what kind of striker he is?
I think he is closer to Kane than Holland, but he's not Kane. I mean, I'm saying he's on a graph. If Kane is on the extreme left and Holland is on the extreme right, sorry, Holland is on the extreme right. Holland is closer to Kane than Holland. Uh, so he's not someone who is constantly running in behind, because we see Holland score a lot of goals based on his positioning, sense for goal, and everything. Højlund has that, but he also has that number 10 ability, that ability of a winger, or number 10, where he not just links up with players, he's very quick as well. In terms of, say, if someone's, I think you must have seen a lot of goals that he scored for Denmark, where he's very quick to get to those loose balls, to crosses. He gets his feet to those crosses very quickly to finish into the bottom corner and everything. So he's very good at those, a lot of those things. But it's almost like he does a lot more than Haaland, and that's not, no disrespect to Haaland, but Haaland is someone who doesn't get involved in build up too much. He's
Yeah.
constantly picking up the right positions. As soon as the ball comes in, he scores 3 or 4 goals in one game and all that. But Kane is someone who's uh, closer to Haaland. I mean, one of, I think Højlund's best trait for me is how he links up with people and his hold up. He's not developed physically. I think he's yet to develop physically. Um, but I think, all despite that, his hold up was pretty decent at Atlanta. Because if you're at Atlanta, you need to, the sort of system that Atlanta have, you need to be very good with link up. If you're not good at link up, you won't survive at Atlanta. That's how they play. When everyone gets involved in pressing, everyone gets involved in attack and combining with each other. So Højlund is really good at that, and I think the striker I talked about, Duvan Zapata, he was also quite good at it. We saw that when Atlanta played against United, and Zapata played quite well. He scored a goal as well. So, and we see a lot of Atlanta players, midfielders inside the box, which means that a lot of times Højlund has had to make that run where he drags the defender back. So he's smart, very smart in front of goal, in around the goal. But as I said, he's got that number 10 instinct as well. And I think uh, for Ten Hag, wide link up is very important,
Yeah.
which is why he's very intent on. I think he's used false nines a lot. You had Dusan Tadic at Ajax, so he's very happy to have false nines. I'm not saying Højlund is a false nine or anything, but he's very good at combining out wide. And I think one thing that is very prominent about Atlanta is that they rely a lot on wide overloads. If you see them play, they can have 4 players on one wing against 2 or 3 of the opposition on that side, to make sure that they have numerical advantage on that side of the pitch. And Højlund was very good at that. So I think that's a trait which Ten Hag will find quite interesting, because if you look at how United play, Ten Hag wants to make sure that he has a 5v5 or a 4v4 in the final third, or an advantage in the final third. And I think Højlund is someone who's really good at that, because we've seen that Atlanta, and Atlanta want the same thing to happen in terms of occupying the right sort of position, and having a numerical advantage. So Højlund understands that. So I think that will be a very important part of how he fits in, and I think he'll fit in well. So he'll fit in fairly easily.
Okay. We are moving on to the third player, which is linked with United, Amrabat, as you know that. What do you think of Amrabat, and are we going to expect the same kind of performance level which he showed us in the World Cup with Morocco? So is that the way he plays in a system, or uh, is that kind of a performance we can expect the remainder of the season, or in a full season? What kind of player he is, or the playing style of him, or how what or how he play or what we can expect from him.
So I think um, during the World Cup, he played for Morocco in a very deep defensive block, which uh, changed a lot of perceptions around the sort of player he is. Because when he came into the World Cup, he wasn't great for Fiorentina in a defensive midfield role. He was playing as the defensive midfielder for only 3 4 months because Lucas Torreira, who was supposed to be signed permanently, he actually left for Galatasaray. So Amrabat was initially expected to leave and Torreira was expected to stay. The opposite happened, and unexpectedly, Amrabat became the defensive midfielder. He wasn't great early on, and Fiorentina didn't start off the season well up until I think they recovered only February onwards. So Amrabat was fairly inconsistent, but it's like the standards were very high because Torreira was excellent last season. I mean, in the season before that, in the defensive midfield role, and that's why Amrabat could never play in defensive midfield. Whenever he played, he was okay. He was never on Torreira's level. But I think one interesting thing about Amrabat that I actually tweeted as well is that I think his actual role is a number eight. He's not a number six. I mean, he can play as a number six, but he's more of a number eight because at Hellas Verona 3 seasons ago, he was playing as a ball carrier alongside a defensive midfielder. That defensive midfielder was an experienced Miguel Veloso, who once used to play for Portugal. And Veloso was the one who did a lot of conducting from deep. You know, the thing about breaking through the opposition press, breaking down opposition lines. Amrabat's role was more about winning the ball back quickly and carrying it forward. Running with it, progressively running with it. Although numbers say that the numbers this season say that he's good at progressive passing. He's good at it, but I think his main strength on the ball is progressive carry, which I think comes out best in a number eight role on the left side. Or he played sometimes on the right as well, but it was more about him playing on the left, Miguel Veloso on the right as a defensive midfielder. So I think Amrabat is more an eight than a six. And one of his weaknesses that I've noticed is that, I mean, I'm not saying he's bad at playing out of the press, but he's pretty much okay. He's not, I'm not even comparing him to Frenkie de Jong, who's one of the best in the world for it. He's not Casemiro, who's quite bad at playing through the press. So he's not Frenkie de Jong either. And he's not Romeo Lavia either, because Lavia is again one of the best in the Premier League for that trade. I think he's okay at it, but I think United can do better in terms of having a defensive midfielder who can play through the press, because that's a problem in the team, and that is a problem which would needed to be fixed at least in the next 1 year or so, if not this summer. So I think he can only be a backup to Casemiro, and by a backup I mean that's going to be a fairly decent downgrade. He's very good out of possession, but in possession, I think there need to be improvement because I think he's a very good receiver. Like one of the biggest problems with Amrabat is that he will always drop deep as a third centre back. He's very keen on that. I mean, even in the Conference League final, I don't know if you guys saw that game. He was very good at dropping deep as the third centre back, receiving it from the goalkeeper or the centre backs, and then recycling possession forward. But when it comes to recycling possession forward, he has those problems where he can often give it away. He's given about 3 or 4 goals away for Fiorentina in that sort of situation where he had to play through two players who were pressing, and then he lost the ball, and Fiorentina either concede goals or concede chances. That's been going on for 2 seasons now. So I think that's a problem. But I think, as I said, his main position is probably number eight. And if you have a number six who's actually good on the ball, who can break through the press, and a number 10 who's operating between the lines, someone like Bruno himself. So I think Amrabat will be very good as an eight. And I think if McTominay or Fred leave, or maybe even both leave, I think Amrabat will be an upgrade on both of them.
Thank you.
So basically, you are saying he is not really he can be a backup to Casemiro if needed, but he's not really the ultimate Casemiro replacement, or like whenever Casemiro retires or move on from United, we should look for. Probably we should develop Mainu in that uh, by the look of the preseason. Hopefully, he's looking good. So uh, moving on to the next question. So now it looks like Mount is done. Not looks like Mount is done, and Onana is uh, almost done. So if you are the I don't know, if you are the director of football, or like whoever, Ten Hag, or who are making the decision at United, what is your ideal transfer you would like to make at United this season? I'm not saying only the realistic ones, but uh, somewhat realistic and somewhat uh, this thing. What is your ideal transfer that you will try and make for this season?
I think since Kim Min Jae is already going to Bayern Munich, I think he's already like
Yeah,
2 hours ago he said goodbye to Napoli. He's about to join Bayern Munich, and I would have said that he should have been at United by now because I think he's better than Rafael Varane in a lot of ways. And I might be coming across as someone who hates Varane or something like that. I don't, but I think it can do better in terms of having a right-sided ball playing centre back because Varane is sometimes very frustrating on the ball. That's seen in a lot of games where he tries to carry the ball forward, but he passes sideways when there's
yeah,
option who's ahead of him. So I think United should have signed Kim Min-jae, but I think the links with Axel Disasi make sense. Although I think he's probably off to Newcastle United, but I think he would have been a decent signing, uh, considering that he's someone who's played in a possession-based system, and that Harry Maguire is probably leaving. I mean, I say probably, but there's still a chance that he doesn't. And I think Maguire's best position is left centre back, which is why I sort of, even if Maguire stays, um, I think no Johnny Evans, by the way. Johnny Evans probably not going to play for the first team when the season starts and all of that, despite all the talk on Twitter and everything. So I think uh, I would have gone with Kim Min Jae right away. No question about it. But since we're talking about Axel Disasi, I wouldn't mind signing someone like Max Killman either. Honestly, he's probably going to replace Kim at Napoli. They probably valued at about 40 to
yeah,
45 million, which is fairly cheap, by the way, for a Premier League player who's played about 2 seasons and he's done really well, and he can play on both the sides of the defense, left centre back and right centre back. He could be a fairly decent signing. So I think there's still a chance that United don't sign a centre back, but at some point down the line, 12 months down the line, I think United will need another centre back. I think United still need a right back, uh, but I think a right back could have uh, been signed this summer if United were good at sales, which they are not, which we obviously know they're not. Uh, I think Mark Rado is someone who could be given a chance later on, but because I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka isn't the solution. He has these games where you're absolutely, overjoyed by how he's playing, but he also has these games where he has no idea what's going on in possession. And then there's Diogo Dalot. Again, I think he's better as a left back. So I think there's a need for a right back. I don't think Jeremy Frimpong was a solution because he's more of a winger.
yeah,
Who's I watched a lot of him at Celtic when he was at Celtic. He was very poor defensively, even in Scotland, not just in Germany. He was always an advanced right-sided, let's say, a wing back more than anything. So I think Benjamin Pavard is someone who I really like because he is excellent in possession, which is why Pep Guardiola wants him. Pavard, I'll still take Pavard at United all day. I think he's can play centre back, understands that system really well, and he would want to move as well. So I think those are two signings in defense I would want. And ideally, I think when it comes to centre forward, I would have loved to have gone for Gonzalo Ramos because I think he is exactly what United need in terms of wide possession, of wide link up, and how complete he is. I think someone like Mehdi Taremi is also a very good option because last season I've heard from a lot of people in Iran who are massive fans of Mehdi Taremi that before this season, Sergio Conceição was playing him in a very one-dimensional role. But last season,
Yeah.
he's turned into a complete monster in possession and out of possession. He can assist, he can score, combine out wide, he can link up with those around him. So I think he could also be a very good option if Haaland doesn't join, if Taremi doesn't go to Milan or elsewhere. I think he's probably going to Milan, but I think Gonzalo Ramos was uh, my dream choice for centre forward, despite the fact that Harry Kane is my favorite Premier League footballer right now, apart from Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford and all those players. Non-United players. Harry Kane is probably my favorite player, but I think Gonzalo Ramos was my choice. So I think that's pretty much it. I think we still need an eight, but I wouldn't mind having Marcel Sabitzer back, honestly, because he's a receiver. He's not someone who's good in possession, but I think that depends on Donny van de Beek. If Van de Beek leaves, uh, Sabitzer could then become an option because they're very similar, I think, because both of them are
Yeah.
receivers in the final third or in advanced midfield. So I think if Van de Beek leaves and Sabitzer is still available, I think Sabitzer could still come back. I mean, I've not heard it from anywhere, but I've had this sneaky feeling for a while because I think Bayern will be eager to let him go or loan him out. Because someone in Italy said that Bayern would still be keen on letting Sabitzer go, but they would only sell him permanently, not on loan. So if, say, Van de Beek leaves permanently or even on a loan with option to buy for whatever, and United get about 10 million from somewhere else, so I think 10 to 15 million for Sabitzer makes total sense. And I would still take it because I think United need another midfielder after Mount. So it could be, Amrabat. I would take Amrabat as an it.
So I'll just ask a follow-up question on this. Do you really think, like you mentioned CB and RB, right? So do you really think, as we all know, United have a budget problem. So do you really think signing someone like Pavard kind of mitigate both of those problems, as he can cover CB and he
Yeah.
can be a right back player also.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's also that um, Bayern probably stopped playing him at right back, and that was I read somewhere reliable in Germany that he also wants to play as centre back. He sees his future
Yeah,
as right centre back instead of full back.
yeah,
And honestly, I also wouldn't mind having Nasser Mazraoui at United because he joined Bayern Munich for
yeah,
free, hasn't played there. And I think if, say, a club comes in for him since he joined for free and he's not playing there, I think next season he'll probably play at Bayern Munich because Cancelo has returned to City and Bayern don't have too many options at right back. He'll probably play. But I think if he's someone like him is available, so I think even he could be a very solid option at right back. But I think you I think very right for Pavard because he is really good at both right centre back and at right back, and also I think more than anything he's very comfortable with the system as well. Because Ten Hag, we've seen that even though he's very adaptable in build up with the team's build up, he usually likes to see United build in a back three to get numerical advantages. So I think Pavard is really good at that. That's why Pep wants him. I mean, United have based their signings on whether Pep Guardiola wants that player or not, but this is someone who is probably uh, very tailor made for that system. And again, if someone like Pavard joins it at this point, United are guaranteed Champions League. United will probably finish inside the top three again next season because they'll have four players that back five
yeah.
who are very good at breaking through the press and control possession and fix that problem that they face next season. So that will solve a major issue, and that's I think the next phase in the club's the development of the sport. And Pavard, I think, solves that brilliantly. And I think what's the price tag mentioned for Pavard? I've not read anything about his price tag.
I think it's around 25 to 30 million.
25 to 30, yes.
Yes, that's very cheap for a France international as well.
Yeah. AJ.
Okay, moving on to this is kind of a last question from our end. What more we need as a club or United need as a club to reach on the levels of City? I mean, on in terms of success, which means I'm talking about, I mean, winning a Premier League or a Champions League. That's where the levels we need to be considered now,
Yeah.
the highest elite level. So, what's your opinion on that particular thing?
I think first of all, United need new owners, which is very obvious, but it's a necessity. Because under the Glazers, United, I mean, let alone the fact that United are bad at buying players, they're very poor at selling players. And that is where teams like Liverpool, um, City, Chelsea, most of all, I think even Spurs, I mean, not Spurs, not all the time, but sometimes. Uh, Arsenal are very bad at it, honestly. Arsenal are
Yes.
probably as bad as United in that regard. And I think if United improve how they conduct sales, they'll they'll benefit a lot in terms of the sort of money they get in and the sort of players they sign. Because you look at what City do. City sign players on long-term deals um, when they're fairly young, and instead of keeping them and making sure they leave free agents like someone like Paul Pogba or someone like Martial probably will, they sell them at the right time instead of using COVID as excuse, using injuries and wages and all of that as an excuse. So if say Jadon Sancho doesn't play well next season, that's time's up for him at a club like Man City, that is, but not at a club like United. They'll probably struggle to sell him because firstly he'll have what 2 years left on his deal, and secondly he earns close to over 300k, which will discourage teams from signing him permanently. So United definitely need to improve in that regard, because that sets the tone for everything. And if say today, if McTominay leaves for 20 million, Maguire leaves for at least 30 million, that could seal two signings for United this summer itself, and that can potentially fix two of your problems. Where City are doing that on a consistent basis, and they constantly sell players well. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson wrote in his book Leading, where he said that selling players at the right time is more important than buying them at the right time,
Yeah.
which is why he
Yes.
sort of regretted selling Yapstam at the wrong time, which was probably his only regret when it comes to selling players. So United need to probably read that book and learn that this needs to be sorted out as soon as, because I think that's the most basic or the most fundamental issue every time United step into the transfer window. When it happens every summer, and the fact that Daniel James went for 30 million says that if you sell the worst players to Premier League clubs, you can earn a solid fee. It's not like there's no market for those players out there, because Wesley Fofana got injured at Chelsea. I think Chelsea will probably come for Harry Maguire next, because it seems like an ACL injury, which is serious, which can rule him out for say next 8 months or something. So I think selling, United need to sort that out.
Yes. Agree. Clearly agree with that point.
I think Arsenal sort of improved in that regard this summer or
Yeah.
last.
This year. Yeah.
For example, I think Arsenal sold Matteo Guendouzi for about 10 million, which I still look back on and feel that's poor business, because Guendouzi won the FA Cup, he played in the Bundesliga, he's played in Ligue 1, but you sell him for 10 million, and that is very very similar to what United do. They'll probably do for Anthony Lampard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Solanke deal, which Liverpool conducted, which is like a 17 million. I always admire them for the kind of
Not
deal
just that, I
they.
think who's that Leicester goalkeeper? Danny Ward was. Is it Danny Ward?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
So
yes,
he left for more than 10 million without ever playing regularly for Liverpool.
yes.
And
Same
that's,
with Solanke as well, I think.
yeah, which is very frustrating half the times. City are selling their youth players who never played in the first team for over 10 million. United are
Yes.
struggling to sell Anthony Langa for more than 15 million, which says a lot about where United are going wrong in terms of
I think
the
for Elanga
fundamentals.
part, they want a sell-out clause or something inserted in that deal. That's why the amount that are getting quoted are less.
Yeah,
Uh, because once you start including the problem is City has that they are obviously
network.
three times champions, so
Yeah,
their players have in demand. But once the other clubs start including these clauses like sell on and everything, the
yeah,
price comes down.
yeah,
So that's what keep happening. That's another thing that we don't let go of players that easily. Like even even when we, especially these academy players, we always put in this sell-on clause or
yeah. Which is
sell-on
what they
is
did for
effectively
Zidane Iqbal, right?
yeah Zidane Iqbal, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
sell-on is effectively now a buyback clause itself because you're putting in a really high sell-on clause that is basically means you have an advantage if you are going back for it. So
Which you don't go back to.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
Yes.
United had sell-ons for Zaha and Memphis Depay. They never went back.
yeah,
They'll probably
Yes.
not
yeah,
go back for James Garner as well.
yeah.
I think most of the young players they have put that release clause. I mean, this
Yeah.
buyback
Sell-on
clause.
clause.
I don't
Yeah,
understand the logic behind it. I mean,
It's actually a
one.
very Serie A tactic, which Roma use a lot. Because, I mean, it makes sense for Italian clubs to use because there's no money there. And there's a higher chance for them to sign those players back because Italian football's youth system is quite bad. So
Yes.
if say Roma sold Scamacca to Sassuolo, so if say Roma wanted to re-sign Scamacca, they had a sell-on clause, which they will likely wanted because there was no other option in the market, and Italian football market is where they're stuck because of their finances. Whereas United's case is different, where they have more
yeah.
finances and there are more core group of younger players in England. So United are very stupid when they do that. It really sort of annoys me.
Yeah, the only one I think that came into fruition is that Chong deal where they put that 25%. Now we got around 1 million something because
Yeah.
he moved to Luton from. Yeah, that's the only thing that panned out as of now. The Zidane Iqbal, I think they have both clauses. I don't know why why you need both clauses. They have put a buyback and they have put a sell on also. So uh,
When I
that's
don't think they'll probably sign him permanently anyway. It's just to say that
yeah,
we have a dominance in the market and don't underestimate us and all of that.
yeah. So if I think our questions almost all of them have finished. So you guys have any questions? Just keep now start adding. I will just start from one of the questions that one of the listeners has asked. Why aren't we signing a proper number nine holder but doesn't guarantee 25 PL goals? How can we come back without a 30 goal? This is like I will add context to this. Last season is probably the season that like we have scored around 59 goals. But to win a Premier League, uh, you need 80 plus goals, right? To win or either challenge or win, you need 80 plus goals. So, as you said, if we are going to sign Hoyland, sorry, we are not really expecting anything more than 10 to 15 from him. That's probably the range that we tend to accept from him, and hopefully there is a our like Anthony once he starts playing with someone who is a central point figure is there, he starts performing well, like like that there are some improvement. But then again, does that take that 59 to 80 plus? That's the question. Like you mentioned Gonzalo Ramos. He has that pedigree. Like he has scored around 20, 22,
Yeah.
23 goals uh, last season. So if he comes to United, we can probably expect us to, that would be the expectation, to move from 60 to 80. Uh, because last season, literally, we played without a striker. Uh, we had a striker who scores every time he played, but he doesn't play at all. And we had a striker who played every time but doesn't score at all. So that's how it went. So basically, if someone like Gonzalo Ramos came, it might have happened. So what do you think? Like, is the reason behind Hoyland? The another thing is giving to the context is Hoyland, as you said, they are asking around 60 million euros plus 10 million euros. Maybe that will come down a bit and all. But I think Gonzalo Ramos is almost similar asking price as of now. They were asking 100 million euros at start, but now they have reduced and it's similar asking price. So, what is the reason behind this switch from Gonzalo Ramos to Hoyland suddenly?
I think firstly, we look at there's like two uh, schools of thought where people say that you always need someone who scores 25 goals or 30 goals a season. But there's also another school of thought that you are so focused on your system that you have so many goal scorers in your team that you don't need a 25 goal a season striker. And I think Atlanta, where Haaland comes from, Atlanta are a very good example of that. Even Man City are, because we saw last season where when Erling Haaland hadn't joined, they a lot of their players scored goals without having a proper number nine, and that was when Kevin De Bruyne was actually injured for some time. So I think it's one of the two, and if I think Ten Hag would love the second bit where they are so system focused and everyone scores goals because they have Mason Mount who scores goals as well. But I think he'd probably want the first part because he's not, as I said, he's very flexible with the system and he's not, like Pep or someone like a lot of Pep's students. He's not someone who's, transfixed or ingrained into that playing style or that philosophy. So he'll want a 25 goal 25 goal striker, and which I think he's always had before United. You look at what he had
Yeah,
at uh, Ajax all the time. I mean, I think pretty much all the time. But the thing at Ajax was that a lot of players around the centre forward scored a lot of goals as well. But there was a focal point in attack, which was firstly Tadic and then um, Sebastian Haller. And when he was at Utrecht, there was Haller was there as well, and Sebastian Haller scored goals there as well, and he's that focal point striker who is very good at link up. He's not your average target man. He's, as I said, he's. I would have liked him at United last summer before he
yeah,
joined Borussia Dortmund. So I think they definitely need that striker because Ten Hag's not ingrained into that Pep ideology where they are so system focused on a particular system or tactic that everyone scores goals in their team, be it the left back or the right back or centre back from corners. So we need, or could be anyone. I mean, you mentioned Gonzalo Ramos. I think there could be many reasons behind it. I've not spoken to anyone who's in or around the players' entourage or anyone, but I think it's probably because, firstly, United probably regret missing out on Erling Haaland, and they don't want to miss out on Haaland. They probably see a lot of potential in him, seeing that even though he's not scored a lot of goals for Atlanta, he's someone who could, for a similar fee as Haaland initially came for, he could maybe be someone of that value. And I think on an ideal, if you remove United's financial problems, 5 years ago, United would probably have afforded what Atlanta currently wants. But the situation currently is that they can't afford to pay what Atlanta want. So that's a problem. But secondly, I also think that uh, Hoyland's actually good. First and foremost, I think that should be the first and foremost thing. And that if you don't sign him now, 12 years down the line, you'll probably have to pay a three-figure mark for him, which
Yeah.
which might not be possible because when you're in that zone, you have strikers like you have parties like Real Madrid, parties like PSG, and parties like Man City themselves because there's a chance that Haaland leaves next summer. And when he leaves, Man City fans will be going gaga over the fact that there's someone with a similar name that they can possibly sign. So I think City will definitely go for him, and they'll have the budget
They,
to
li-
sign him.
they literally have Alvarez waiting in the wing. Like,
Yeah, they have Alvarez as well.
yeah.
So, I mean, City, that's why. I mean, they're so good at selling, they have Alvarez as well. And when Haaland leaves, they'll sign another striker despite having Alvarez as well, which
Yeah.
United can't because United can't sell Anthony Martial. So I think there's two reasons why Haaland is being pursued. But I think it's almost as if maybe 2 years down the line, if say United don't sign Haaland now, Haaland could be scoring as many goals as Ramos. So you can't be paying 150 million then, which Napoli want for Victor Osimhen at this point, and
Because, yeah.
which you can't be paying, which is mad money, which I don't think anyone can pay unless
Yes.
Osimhen signs a contract and that has a release clause of say 120 million or something, and then you pay next summer, or United somehow go out there and say that we'll sign Teremi this summer and then Martial leaves next summer, so that Taremi is that stopgap, and next summer United sign Kane on a free or Osimhen for whatever that release clause is, which will be very silly, as I said, because Haaland could be reaching Osimhen levels at that point. But I think that's the major reason why.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we have almost 1 hour into this thing. So we will take one more question and then finish this off. Um, I I think there is one question here that probably I would like Kaustubh to answer. So, but you, like I have seen the tweets. Like while I think this first game, preseason game, I kind of forgot who we Leeds. So we
Yeah,
played against Leeds, and yeah, I have seen your tweets saying that this guy is like I love him or something like that. I forgot the wording of that tweet, but I have seen that tweet. So do you think like we can develop him like the things I am hearing like Ten Hag doesn't want him to go on more. He
yeah,
wants him around first team. So that is even you can see after the Carabao Cup win also. Uh, Ten Hag was literally having a conversation with him on the pitch, saying that you take this in like all. So he is coaching him there and there. So he was part of the squad last season all through, and now he has started playing.
yeah.
Um, so, do you think we can grow him to the and before the Leeds game itself, Ten Hag clearly mentioned that I my aim is to bring one academy player into the squad every year. So last time around Garnacho came. This time, hopefully, someone
Yeah.
comes. Uh, so, do you think we can do this? Like what Red Devil is asking. Like, uh,
Yeah, I think he I think the tweet that I mentioned was, I think it said that Kobe Mainu is him. Him
yeah,
says it I think him means that he's that guy. So I think he is that guy because I think I was watching that game because that was probably the only time that Maino has actually started for United and he's played, uh, you know, those number of minutes. So I think a lot of times I looked at him and thought that if Pogba was disciplined, if Pogba actually knew how the positioning of a defensive midfielder or of a, even for a central midfielder works, that would be Maino at 80. That's
yeah,
that's what I actually thought. And he- since United are lacking, as we've already mentioned, United need players who can play through the press, who can evade the press, who can resist the press. that game, I know that was, especially in the second half, Leeds played a very random team. But in the first half, they did have a decent team, even though that was a friendly. I think you could see that he is someone who's got that pirouette or that drop of a shoulder where he can, get away from someone who's trying to press him, which Casemiro doesn't have, which Christian Eriksen, I don't think he's ever had that because he's always been a different kind of player. And Mason Mount doesn't have that. Or even if he has that, it's not the best part of his game. So I think if, say, Kobe Mino is at Chelsea, for example, at this point, Mauricio Pochettino turns him into the next Musa Dembele without a shadow of doubt, because he's got that trait in him to evade the press. And I think United need that. Although it's almost like, as you said, Ten Hag wants a youth player to come into the side and break into the team every season. But the harsh truth about academies and academy players is that only, say, 5%,
Yeah,
5% of them over a 10-year period make it to the first team. I mean, I think United are probably an exception because United have had absolutely crap signings. So United have had more academy players in their first team. Lingard, McTominay, Rashford, the one who must not be named number 11, and all of these players. Tyler Blackett
yeah,
was there. We had Tuanzebe there. Dean Henderson still there. So United are probably at a very weird part, a very weird period in history where the signings have been so bad that they've had to play those academy players, or Anthony Martial is so injured so often that the
Elanga. Yeah,
Elanga's come in as well. So I think
yeah,
when Martial's injured, the likes of Greenwood, the likes of Rashford, even Elanga and now Garnacho, they've got chances purely because Martial was in. So I think this is the right time to inculcate Minor into the team, because if he goes on loan at this point, I think when I think he's going to have a pretty good preseason. If he goes on loan, I would lose a lot of hope because United have done that for a lot of midfielders, and that
yeah,
includes James Garner, and they've done that for Hannibal as well. And for a lot of players in the past, they did that for some like Ethan Hamilton, who was promising at one point. So I don't want that to happen. And Ten Hag is someone who's actually worked in the youth sector. He was at Bayern Munich too, where he had to put in a philosophy which was similar to the first team. So he's someone who understands how youth coaching works, how inculcating players into the team works, which we saw when Casemiro initially, played, when he didn't even play for the first two games and then came on at halftime against Southampton. People criticized Ten Hag for it, but that was, I think, a very good time because United actually won the game because of
yeah,
Casemiro making some vital interceptions and blocks. So Ten Hag knows how integration into first team works. Also, I think Garnacho's example shows that, where a lot of people wanted Ten Hag to play Garnacho right away, but he hasn't. He hasn't taken that risk. He's made sure that he sort of matures first. He's 19. He's already having a baby, which is unheard of in India. But at least it shows that he's maturing as a person more than anything. So Ten Hag's given him that chance to mature, which I think Sir Alex Ferguson used to do a lot. And I think Minu's going to play next season because he played last season. I don't know which position, but since United want to play with two number eights, he's probably going to play in defensive midfield, especially if Amrabat doesn't arrive, or if a number eight doesn't arrive, who can play as a number six. So as I said, mine was him, and he will play next season, and he should play next season, or I'll lose some hope.
yeah. So AJ, we can
Okay.
find a
Okay, we can conclude, I think.
yeah,
Thank you very much for
Thanks, sir.
the we are pleasure to have you on board, and also we have had very good insights to the player we are linked up with, and also about Kobe Mainu and as well. And like I said again, it's a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we will see you in the future for
Yeah,
our
definitely.
own fans, followers from Kerala, southern part of India. And uh, thank you very much for once again from bottom of my heart and also from our community. Thank you very much, and hopefully we will see you again with all the discussions regarding Italian league players, and very wishing you a very good success with all the things you are doing currently with. And hopefully we can see more and more tactical insights in regarding to the Italian league
Hopefully
teams
when
and the
Milan
players.
wins.
Thank you. Hopefully, yes. Thank you very much,
Thanks a lot.
and
Thanks a
have
lot.
a great night. Thank you.
You too. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So thank you guys again. Do the same thing, like share it, like it, and subscribe, and all these things. Like so, we'll be back with another episode, and do tune into our Twitter account for updates and stuff. I think lot AJ, lot of them were asking about the takeover thing, and thing. AJ is kind of a financial expert on our board who covers that part. Guys, please stay tuned for that. We will AJ will probably come up something, uh, and you can follow our some handle for that update. Okay, thank you guys. Adios. Bye.
Thank you. Adios.
Thank you.